Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Curl. Welcome to our Altered Carbon Season 1 Thoughts video. I just finished watching the first season of Altered Carbon now that the second season is finally coming out, and I'm just going to be sharing my general thoughts on this season. I will be avoiding any big major spoilers. That being said, I'm just going to be talking about my general thoughts for the season. So yeah, I did just finish watching the first season. I had started the first episode and I did enjoy it when it first came out, but I also remember distinctly thinking at the time, I can't start this show if it's not getting a second season, or if it isn't a limited series. And that's just because this concept for Altered Carbon, the idea of having these stacks and these sleeves where people's minds exist in pretty much like a little hard drive, and you can kind of get ported from body to body and all these different things that relate to that. And so that concept alone, I'm just like, so on board for as a sci-fi concept, as a TV show, everything. I really just enjoyed like the concept behind pretty much this world, this sci-fi world we dove into. So I remember when I first was gonna watch this show, like holding back until I found out if they were doing a second season or if this was just kind of a limited run, if this was like the first season was supposed to be like the whole story or not. And so eventually, because this the first season I can't think came out in 2018, I believe. So it's been at least 2 years, I think, since the first season came out. So it wasn't until like almost near the end of 2019 before I heard anything about the second season, and that didn't make me immediately hop back on just because there's just so much Netflix stuff to keep up with. But I did once they finally released the trailer for the second season, and I was watching it, and it reminded me of a few things, but then I was like, I definitely need to actually watch the rest of the first season. So that's what this video is about now that I've gotten through the whole reason why I made this video, or why I decided to finally finish watching the first season. But that being said, I did really enjoy it. Just the concept alone, like I said, just got me hooked right away. But then this mystery that we're following, the Tox character, Tasaki Kovac. See, his name I'm never sure if I'm going to say right, so we're going to stick with Talk. And so we get introduced to this character of Talk, who's an envoy, which is this kind of like a rebel soldier group who are like super highly trained, and they're kind of particularly revered because they had the ability to just hop in between sleeves from planet to planet and not have the same kind of, bounce back period that most people have. They're able to just get in immediately and get to work. So just being introduced to this character who gets brought back after 250 years of being in kind of prison in a sense, on ice as they refer to it, and then having to come back because some rich guy wants him to kind of solve his own murder, which is just again is a fun part of this show's concept, the fact that he gets hired by this billionaire or trillionaire, really big titan of industry guy who wants his own death investigated, and you're like, wait, what? Oh, okay. He's so rich he's able to back himself up and have clones of himself, back up clone bodies, and so this whole season's about finding out what happened in pretty much, I think it was the 24 hours in between this rich guy's last backup and his apparent death, or his, well, not his apparent death. He did die, but they have a term in the show called real death, and so this whole season's about investigating that. And so I was really intrigued. The Tox character is just interesting because he just, when we first meet him, he just doesn't care about shit, and then he kind of, they appeal to certain sensibilities with him because he does have a certain sense of honor, but then he's kind of the reluctant hero. Obviously, it's very kind of, I don't want to say by the book, but when you when you go to describe his his path through this, you're like, oh yeah, he's the reluctant hero. But that being said, there's nothing wrong with a hero's journey. I love it. That's all I watch. So I really enjoyed this first season, following this mystery Talk, trying to also having his own stuff, us learning more about his background and the envoys and his how he ended up being a part of them and what they were fighting for and all this stuff. So I really enjoyed this season and checking it out and diving into this mystery, which was just a really good one because I didn't quite 100% put it together, which is really always a good thing, because if a show has a mystery, then I'm like, yeah, I know who killed you right at the beginning. It's tough for me to get through the full season. So this one had, at least it was an intriguing enough mystery that I'm like, okay, excuse me, I'm just like, okay, what's gonna happen? So I really enjoyed it, and I thought the payoff for it was really well done. And it's funny that not avoiding trying to dive into anything too spoilery, but having finished watching this first season, I definitely could have watched it because it does have it ends in enough of a way that if they hadn't made a second season, I could have actually been happy with the way this if it had been just a one season show, because it does it's open-ended enough that it's like, okay, we get definitive stuff to the season, but we also kind of have a path forward. So I'm really excited for the second season to see that path forward. And again, so like that's another reason why I don't feel it's too much of a spoiler. There is another season coming out. It'll be out by the time I upload this video, probably, or shortly after. But yeah, so some of the other things I just really enjoyed was learning about it. I really enjoyed the cast. I cannot tell you like one character who I did not enjoy. I thought they were all really great, and it's this really interesting thing because we can have certain individuals bouncing between like being in bodies you wouldn't expect, because you know they have they exist in stacks, and stacks can go in different sleeves are human bodies in this case, so, and stacks are the hard drives, so you can kind of switch it up, and it's just kind of a fun, I don't want to say gimmick, but a fun kind of tool they can use during the show that makes it a little bit more interesting with certain dynamics. At one point we see a grandmother get brought back in the body of this, biker gang looking guy, all tattooed and pierced up, and so that was just kind of a fun little thing to see, this sweet old lady personality coming out from this, what looks like this, very tough looking exterior. So just kind of a fun thing to explore throughout the season, and exploring all the different ways that the rich people kind of skirt all the different rules that they set up with this. Like there's no double sleeving, which is having two bodies with two your consciousness copied, and all these different fun things. So I just really enjoyed this first season. All the different science fiction elements that I brought in, did a really great job with action. That's one thing Netflix actually does pretty well most of the time, is action. So I thought this was really done, especially for a sci-fi show. They did a really great job of being creative with the different technologies and weapons that they utilized in it, even though they were in the future, and they did use a lot of swords considering they are in the future at some but I'm still on board for that. I like a sword fight. So yeah, that was really fun. And yeah, so that's pretty much all my thoughts on the first season. I don't want to spoil too much for it, because I do think if you haven't seen it and you've made it this far into the video, you should definitely go check it out if you like a good sci-fi, action sci-fi series, but that's also got a little bit that's following a mystery and kind of exploring this new world. And there's a second season coming out, so you got, if you really enjoy it, you got more to watch, which is what I'm excited for. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts. Be sure to let me know in the comments below if you're planning on checking out the first season of Altered Carbon, or if you're planning on checking out the second season if you've already seen it. I'm curious to see who's interested in it. But yeah, thanks again for joining me today. Sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.